recording. Let's do the Mentimeter quiz. Okay, I'm sure you guys know the drill by now. Let me post it in the chat though, just because it can be easier that way. If the chat comes up, okay, there it is. Okay, so what I started doing was locking the taskbar. Sorry about this, guys. Automatically hide the taskbar. There we go. Not sure what it is about Zoom on Windows. So menti.com, maybe some of you guys have forgotten because it has been a while since we've done these. 1266591 is the code. Okay, I see some people are already joining. That's cool. So we're covering this. Then we're going to cover stored procedures, which we were supposed to cover like 2 weeks ago, but I forgot to show you guys last week. And then we're going to cover the SQL dataset thing, which is, it's pretty cool. It's a nice idea. You can do so much more with them than what we're going to be doing today. We're just going to get like a really brief overview of a couple of commands that you can use in conjunction with datasets. And then that'll be it. We'll take a break, and then Joanne will join us just for like sort of discussions, farewells and stuff, and also sort of scheduling for the exam. And I suppose she'll also be asking you like what kind of revision programs you guys want and stuff. But yeah, so that is the agenda for today. Okay, so I see 8 people have joined so far, and I take it there's about 12 students currently in attendance. So, okay, I'll give you guys like another minute or so to join. Okay, yeah, so we'll start soonish. Oh, okay, and instead we lose an attendance. Okay, but someone else joined the meeting. Ups and downs. Okay, they're back. I went with the light theme. Usually I prefer dark themes, but for this Mentimeter quiz, something different, you know? Okay, let's get started. Remember guys, you can join, these are just for fun. You can join mid-quiz. What are the basic building blocks of an entity relationship diagram? Of an entity, oh, I was reading it, entity relationship diagrams. Yeah, so do I. It's easier on your eyes. Okay, majority got it. To be honest, on this one, I'm going to say the clue is in the name, right? Like the only answer that uses the words entity and relationship is the correct one. But maybe, you know, that makes it seem too easy, so it throws you off. But anyway, okay, so I expected some people to say class, property, and relationship, because we did compare entities to classes and attributes to properties, right? Like they're very similar ideas, if you remember from that lecture. So yeah, fair enough, but we call them entities inside databases. We also call properties attributes when we're working with relational databases. So no one said entity, property, and link. That was, the link thing was a pretty dead giveaway, I think. Table, column, and relationship. So that's kind of, table and column are what entities and attributes are, kind of, but we call them entities and attributes when working with ERD diagrams, because the diagram doesn't have any tables or columns, right? So it would be kind of deceptive calling them tables and columns. Anyway, yeah, pretty happy with that, not too bad. So on to the next one, question 2 of 5. Which anomaly can result in the unexpected removal of data from the database? Oh, wait. You know what? My trick kind of, in trying to trick you on this one, I maybe actually gave it away. Ah, unlucky. It happens. Okay, so what was that? 5 out of 9 plus 1 if Alex clicked on the right one. Okay, so delete anomaly. So yeah, so remove anomaly I just put there to trick you guys. Remember, update anomaly is when updating a singular field requires that you update multiple rows of the database, like updating fiction to literary fiction. Rather than just requiring you to update one field, we would have to update, every single field if the genre table is not separate. Just to relate it back to the example that we saw. Remove anomaly, that one I was trying to trick you guys, and by saying, remove, but realizing that I was trying to trick you guys, I figured that it probably made the question easier, because delete and remove are kind of similar, and delete anomaly exists, remove anomaly doesn't. So yeah, anyway, maybe I overanalyzed that one a little bit. But question 3 of 5. Which normal form requires that all non-key columns are functionally dependent on the entire primary key? So remember, each one of them has like their own little extra rule. So which normal form has this as its extra rule? I was struggling to think of a fourth option in this one. Because I think a multiple choice question with just A, B, and C, the odds are too good, Huh, some people did say normalization, so that's interesting. Okay, so it's specifically asking about normal forms. So the process of normalization is not what we should be thinking about generally, so all of these normal forms fall under normalization. And the process of taking a table through these normal forms is what we call normalization. So 1NF, the requirement is that no column shall contain multiple values. 2NF means that it must be in 1NF and all non-key columns are functionally dependent on the entire primary key. And 3NF means that it must be in 2NF and that, okay, let me just make sure that I don't get, there must be no functional dependence between non-key attributes is the next rule. So yeah, those are the normal forms. I think I didn't get any wording wrong there. And yeah, so 2NF, most of you got it, that's cool. I guess this one's pretty tough. Do keep in mind the rules of the normal forms though, okay? So do revise that before any kind of test or, well, the test at the end of the course, okay? Because that's one that they do like asking. You need to modify some of the records in the library table. Which SQL statements can achieve this? So we want to modify some of the records in the library table. Wow. Okay, I guess we don't require discussion on this one. Well done, guys. Impressive stuff. After coding and testing your update statements, you notice that every row in the table is updated. How can you address this? Wow. Okay. Okay, maybe I made those last two. Actually, no, I think you guys are just good at this. Nicely done. Because I don't think the other school got them all right on those last two. Okay, so everyone got at least two because you guys wrecked those last two questions, so that's cool. Pingu, well done. Wow, you were pretty ahead of the rest. Oh wow, guys, look how well I did. Joshua Bruton. Good nickname. Okay, cool. Nicely done, Pingu. Okay, cool. So, yeah, as I said, what we would start with, I'm quickly going to show you that one thing we kind of skipped. Well, not skipped. I just forgot that we didn't cover this in the lecture we were supposed to cover it. So we're going to do that. And okay, cool. Now, you guys all did well. You guys are definitely wrecking my other students, but I think it's partially just because your attendance is much better. For some reason, for Crawford students, the fact that the videos are uploaded doesn't make everyone bunk, which is great. Okay, cool. So where were we? I'm going to remind you of where we were on this SQL lecture. I think you guys seem like, judging by those last two questions, you're pretty good at SQL. So I won't spend too much time on this, but just to remind you where we are. So we created this simple database where we had genres and books. The books that I have here are different. In fact, I can just send this to you guys if you want to run through it while I do it. So the site is dbfiddle.com. The schema is that whole thing. And the statements, well, the statements is one line. So I'll leave that to you. Okay. Anyway, you don't. It can be fun. Do what you want with all the code. So yeah, where we were, we created a genre table, a book table. The book table is related to the genre table through genre ID. And you can see, so if I say select star from book, they're separate tables, right? So we just get the genre ID over here. We just get the genre ID on the right, you see. However, we can say select star from book and then join it to the genre table. So you guys remember that statement? It was inner, join, genre, on, and so the foreign key is genre ID. So where genre ID equals the ID in the genre table. So if the ID is 2 in the genre table, then the genre ID must be 2 in the book table, and then we relate them to each other. So what are we joining on? What columns? We're joining book.genre ID to, so where they equal, so book.genre ID must be joined to genre.id. Okay, I think you guys, you understood this better than your first time than when I saw it at first, it seemed, from our lecture. What database management system do you like to use personally? Database management system, I'm currently using, I like PostgreSQL. PostgreSQL, you can look into that. PostgreSQL, like that. And yeah, and I use Heroku to store all the databases that I use for like live apps. Although Google Cloud is very cool as well. The thing, if you set up your own website through Firebase, you'll have access to what they call a real-time database, but that is like crazy, pretty modern stuff. Like it's very different from this standard thing that we're learning here. But we're just being distracted now. Okay, so we joined the book table to the genre table, and you can see we end up with one slightly bigger table, and you can see the genre ID is joined to the ID of the book table. Okay, you guys got this. And then you can see like we could still filter by sort of philosophy, for example. Like we could say where genre.name equals philosophy, or philosophy is difficult to spell, so we're going to use fiction just to avoid any embarrassment. So we can see If we filter on fiction, then it just gives us the one fiction book in our database. If we filter on fantasy, then it'll just give us the 2 fantasy books in the database. Okay. But you can see that this expression is very long, right? Like if I wanted to filter on fantasy and then later on, like tomorrow, someone comes to me and they want me to filter on philosophy, then I would have to type out this entire expression again. I'm going to copy paste it just for the sake of example. I'd have to type out this entire expression again, just replace the fantasy with philosophy and run it again. Okay. So this is exactly the same expression. I've just substituted out one thing, right? And you can see that this would be really tedious. Like if you're a database administrator, you don't want to have to type out this whole long statement like 5 times a day just because people are asking you for the different genres in your books table, or like the books associated with the different genres. So this is a really repetitive task that we as programmers want to avoid doing. If this was happening in C#, if there was some kind of repetitive task that, you know, it would take a lot of time to type out the code each time manually or to repeat the code. Okay, if I use the word repeat, that might confuse someone. But like, do you guys remember in C#, what structures would we use to handle this? If there was some block of code, okay, I see, that's because I used the word repeat. So you know what, fair enough. Okay, Maya, we were on the same wavelength there. Okay, that's good. Method is what I was going for. So, but don't worry, I did use the word repeat, so that might have thrown some people off. But the idea is that there's this very similar block of code that is running multiple times. Okay, yeah, I'll copy paste the query. But you see, actually, you do get the point, because you don't want to have to type out this whole query, Alex, and nor does the database administrator. Okay, so you do get the point. You don't want to have to type out that whole thing. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. So we have this thing that we're repeating a lot, and yeah, so Maya, you are correct. It is method is what I was going for. But in SQL, there's slightly different. Okay, so when we have this sort of repetitive bit of code that only is substituting out one thing, we don't create a method like we do in C#, nor do we create a function like we do in JavaScript. In this case, they decided to call it a procedure. Okay, so we've learned these 3 different programming languages. All of them have a different word that basically means method. Okay, so in C# it's methods, in JavaScript it's functions, in SQL it's procedures, but they're the same. They are literally identical. Okay, so yeah, it's slightly different in different versions of SQL. I'll just show you briefly like what it looks like. So 100 years ago, an SQL developer might have written this thing on the left here. That's what they have in page 160 of your book. So do just get familiar with that kind of styling. Okay, so they use the word as and return, but in principle, it's exactly the same as what we're going to learn. Ours will just look a little bit more like this. Okay, the thing on the right, that's a more modern way of writing out an SQL procedure. The way. Okay, so yeah, so that's how you create a procedure. I think I'm just going to show you by example. So you say create procedure, nice and self-explanatory, like all SQL commands. You give your procedure a name, which is the same as your method names from C#. We put some normal brackets there just because, you know, that's how it's done. Although we'll see what the use of these are later. And then you say begin, end, the / thing I'm going to explain to you just now. And your SQL query goes between the beginning and the end. And you can have as many lines in your SQL query as you like. So whatever code you want to be run. So we're just going to put the simple statements inside the procedure and just see how it works. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to come down here. We're going to say create procedure. We'll call it get genre. Get genre, that's a good name for it. Okay, get genre, go to a new line. We say begin, end, and then we write out our whole SQL statement here. So we copy it all over. Okay, oh, don't forget the semicolon. Okay, so we copy out our whole SQL statements. You guys can get that from the chat as well, because I did share it there. So that's that. And then obviously, so as you can see with every single line we've ever done, every single query we've done, they all end in semicolons, sort of like in C#, right? And JavaScript. So I'll put a semicolon there. Can anyone tell me, is it fair that the computer might get confused in this case? Can someone explain why? If we think like a computer, would this situation be confusing to you if you look at how I've written this procedure here? If we just read through it, character by character, basically. So create, procedure, get genre, that seems fine, right? Begin, that's fine. It might think that that end is its own query. Yeah, perhaps, like, yeah, you can picture it that way. So if we go through character by character, we've got the whole query. There's no reason it would be confused about that. Then it sees a semicolon. So what does that mean to the computer here? It goes, okay, I'm just going to stop reading this as one instruction. And so that's the end of that instruction, right? Create procedure, begin the query, and then we get to the semicolon. That's the end of the instruction. But that's not the true end, right? You see that. That semicolon is not truly the end of what we were wanting to tell the database here, right? That end needs to be included. Like you can imagine if there was another query here that must be a part of the procedure, that must also be in the procedure. But like the end of the procedure must also be in the procedure, obviously. So what we have to do when working in actual SQL is we have to add a delimiter. Okay, so or we have to change the delimiter. So if you guys don't know, if you're going to forget this name, so D just means like separate or segregate, and so like defense, if you think about that word, defense. So like D means separate, fence is a fence, right? So defense is like separating with a fence. It's a pretty sensible way of describing the idea of defense, right? And it's the same here. So D just means the thing that separates each line. So it's the semicolon. By default, the delimiter is the semicolon. And limiter is like it's limiting the length of the line, if you want to think about it that way. Okay, so that's what we call the semicolon in this case. So SQL has this command delimiter. You can see it's highlighted in blue. So delimiter will allow you to change from the default delimiter. So if I say delimiter // it's going to take the // as the new delimiter. So now instead of reading a semicolon as the end of the line, it reads // as the end of the line. And so now when it sees the semicolon, it will no longer think that's the end of the procedure. It no longer thinks that's the end of the procedure. And in order to say this is the actual end, we put a // at the end there. Okay, so that's all the delimiter is doing. All right, I hope my explanation of that made sense. If you guys have any questions about this whole delimiter thing, let me know. Okay, and yeah, // is the standard thing to change the delimiter to. It's good practice to use //, and in any example you'll see //. Okay. So that's that. And now we can just call get genre. So instead of typing out select star from book and a join when we want to get the genre fantasy, you can just type call get genre. Okay, like so. And if we run that, assuming we didn't make any spelling mistakes or whatever, you can see it gets all the fantasy books. So it runs the query that was in the procedure. Okay. Would the delimiter be changed? Yeah, exactly, Adam. It'll be changed for the rest of the schema code. Yeah, precisely. But when you call get genre, it only replaces it with the thing between the beginning and the end, and it doesn't count. And it also the delimiter no longer counts on the right here. But you guys knew that already, right? Like this code is separate from this code, right? From the SQL. Okay. But yeah, good question. Yes, it does. It changes for the rest of the thing. Okay, cool. So that is that. And yeah, so you call a procedure that you've created with call, and we've discussed this execute reader thing. Actually, I must remove that from the slide. It's in the wrong place. Should be for the next lecture. And we had already learned that. This bottom point here, we had already learned. Okay, so we have, so you can picture so this procedure just gets fantasy books, right? If I wanted a procedure that got philosophy books, you could say if I called this get fantasy genre, for example, and I created another procedure called get philosophy genre, and then another procedure called get fiction genre. But that would get a little bit tedious, I think you can agree. So instead of that, since it's just this one thing changing, and even if there were two things changing, we can, just like a normal method, pass in parameters, right? Just like in C#, if we were creating a function that added two numbers together, we could pass in int a and int b, and then say a plus b could be our method. So just like in that, where we pass in the parameter a and the parameter b, in SQL procedures, we can pass in parameters to our procedure, okay? And we call these in SQL, they're not just called procedures anymore, they're called parameterized procedures. Even though like this is what you would expect a method in any language to be able to do, but they want to be seem more fancy in SQL. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty easy to create a parameterized procedure. So you'll just say inside the bracket there, you can just say in, because it's like the parameters coming into the procedure. You give it a name as usual. You have to give everything a name. So I'll just call it the genre that we're searching for. And you have to give it the type. Does anyone remember what type are we going to use for a genre's name inside SQL? So not inside, you guys know what it is inside C#, but does anyone remember how we wrote the type of a genre's name? Char or, okay, so char would be a singular one. We're looking for, but yeah, close enough. So var char and then the length that you want. So the number of, so it's basically like a string of characters that must be a maximum length of 255. Okay, I think you can actually just use char, but again, versions. So it does highlight char as the type. But yeah, be careful about like SQL versions because it does get very finicky. But yeah, so now instead of typing fantasy there, I can just use the name of this parameter that's coming in. So I can just say genre, because we've got a varchar 255 called genre coming into the parameter. And then when we call the procedure, we can now just call it with whatever genre we're fetching. So if I call it with fiction, it's going to fetch all of the fiction books. If I call it with fantasy, it'll fetch all the fantasy books. If I call it with philosophy, it'll fetch all the philosophy books. Okay. So that is parameterized procedures. We just missed it. Like I forgot that I was supposed to teach that to you guys last week at the beginning. But yeah, so that's parameterized procedures. Not too bad, I don't think, really. We did cover it quite fast though, but you guys seem pretty okay with SQL. Okay, so that's parameterized procedures. You can just put a comma afterwards if you want to pass in more parameters. It's exactly like C# methods, so I don't see the point in spending too much time on it. Okay, so picking up where we left off actually last week was we made it through this whole XML thing. We learned that we could read and write to XML files, and also that XML is like super easy and intuitive to read. We learned how to connect to a database and like these 3 different ways to execute a query on a database that you're connecting through from a console app. And we learned that we could write those. We learned about streams a little bit, and we can use these streams to save the database response to a file or read it from a file, right? Using like stream reader, stream writer to write to files. But if we're saving like videos or whatever, we would use a binary reader or binary writer, but it's the same exact principle. Okay, so that's where we left off last week. If I know I went through the sort of revision process very quickly, but you know, we do record the lectures, so I guess that's an advantage there. But yeah, so there is this one issue. Do you guys remember that keyword? Like execute reader had this keyword and XML reader had this keyword that I was pointing out to you guys. So the XML reader, the execute reader or SQL data reader, and the stream reader and binary reader, they all would use this one term to describe how they read things in. Does anyone remember? It was non-cached. There were actually 3 keywords, but 2 of them like didn't matter to us that much. Like it was non-cached, FOST. Okay, so FOST and non-cached, but there was like a 3rd term that they used in the little Visual Studio blurb to describe how it reads. So it reads like line by line. What did it call it though? What did it call it? I don't think you guys would be asked about this in the exam, but I am interested to see because it is a good way of understanding it, I think. Start to end. Okay, you know what, Adam? You're gonna get points for that. So in a way, it is start to end. It is. Yeah. Okay. So they called it forward only. Forward only. Okay. So all of these readers, like they could only go one way. You couldn't do any fancy data processing, right? It's like reading from a big text file and it just reads line by line. Or in the case of the XML reader, it read elements by elements, if you guys remember. So it read element by element, but it always only goes forward. Like there's no going back. You can't process the data in fancy ways. And the reason it does it that way is if you're reading in this huge amounts of data from a database, like we were, right? Like 19,000 lines, you can imagine if those people had profile pictures that are each like 500 kilobytes or whatever, that's going to be a huge amount of data, right? And if you look at like the kinds of data sets they work with in machine learning nowadays, you can end up with like 3.5 billion transcripts of messages. So obviously you can't read that all into the computer's memory at once. So instead you read it line by line and you process that line and then you process the next line so that the computer's memory, it doesn't fill up too much, right? But if we're working with a sort of smaller subset, or if we want to do some more advanced processing on a specific piece of data, we can't just have it being forward only. It can't just be forward only because you need to do fancy processing. Like if I see some data later on while I'm processing things, that might change what I need to do with data earlier on. Or if I want to read in from two separate tables, but create my own relation inside the C# app, like create my own relation between genre and or something else. Okay. So there's this idea that reading forward only limits the amount of processing we can do. And so what C# provides, and most languages have some kind of version of this, I don't think, I mean, maybe if you're programming games in sort of Unity, you might use this for doing certain things, I suppose. But in general, you would use other languages' versions of these, I reckon, more. But it is a nice idea to understand just at a base level, like even why this exists, okay? So it's really, number one, if we're just reading forward only, we always have to go back to the flat file, or we always have to go back to the database, the server, to the response it gave us. And we have to like continually query it. We have to continually fetch things from the flat files we're using, continually fetch things from the XML files we're using, because they're not all read in at once, okay? And we only go forward. It's very slow, and it limits the amount of processing we can do. Like we can't create our own relationships. And so what a C# dataset allows us to do is to take all of the data and just save it in the computer's memory. So we can work with it and process it how we want, and we can do exactly what we want. So instead of a reader, like SQL data reader, in this case, they call it an SQL data adapter, a data adapter, because you can adapt the data to your needs. It's not just forward only. You've actually got the data structure. You've actually got the table as an object in the computer's memory. So that's what a C# dataset allows you to do. They saved this for the very, very end of the course. In fact, I don't even think, like officially, we didn't even really need to cover this because the questions they ask about it are very limited. But I think it's an interesting idea to understand. So inside system.data, there's a class called DataSet, and that's what will allow us to do this. Okay, so we can read in the data set, it gives us in-memory storage. And so yeah, we can represent this relational structured data in the actual computer's memory. Hopefully I've explained that to you now properly, okay. Cool. And yeah, so there's really two ways that we can work with this that you could potentially be asked. They don't really ask this too much though. So the first way, which to be honest, we're not that interested in because reading from an XML, it's just so simple. So you literally can just say read XML. So like dataset.read.xml, and you can give it an XML file and it'll just read the XML file into a C# dataset. So that's one way to populate a C# dataset. And the other way is using this SQL adapter.fill, which is what I want to actually show you. That's the one I want to actually show you. And yeah, so after I show you this, then we will officially be done. Because yeah, that's page 172. And yeah, page 172 is where we'll do a similar sort of example. They go pretty crazy with this, especially given the kinds of questions they ask. Like in one page, they expect you to understand. No problem, Jad. I must just remember to add you to the register during the break. I say that, but I never remember these things. But I will try. Maybe if you remind me. Say sorry for being late in 14 minutes, okay? Cool. So we have our little bit of code here. Let me just sort of explain what's going on again a little bit. So we have that database. Okay, wait, hold on. I think you have to click it to reconnect for the database. This was an annoying thing to find out. So I'm just opening up the Server Explorer. You can see our database. It has that little cross there. If I click it and like open it, then it knows to connect to it. So you can see Visual Studio is just opening the connection to the database so that we can view everything that's in it. Okay, cool. So now we're connected to the database. And if you guys remember, the database had what was called a connection string. So it was like the source of the data was my PC. You can imagine that could be like a URL to some other database server. That's not on my computer. The catalog that we're accessing, that's how they say database, is AdventureWorks. Okay, and integrated security is just saying that, it must be a secure connection. They'll have various policies around this. But this is a very standard thing. Nowadays, everything uses integrated security, like how all websites nowadays mostly are HTTPS. It's just sort of implied that this would be true. Okay, so cool. So we connect to the database using this SQL connection class. So SQL connection, and we discussed this quite a bit. So we open a new SQL connection object and give it the connection string that we want to connect to. Remember, this just like initializes it. You guys remember, even in chapter 5, there is a distinction. Initializing a connection or initializing a control is not the same thing as like opening the connection and rendering it, right? Like this is just setting all the properties, reserving some memory for the connection, doing all of like the pre-processing stuff, okay? We then also had an SQL command. The command is linked to the connection. So you see SQL command equals connection.create command, okay? So it's linked to the connection. We can set the command text to whatever arbitrary query we want. So this is where we were updating Adams to Eves and Eves to Adams. What we're going to do is just go back to just select select star from AdventureWorks.person. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to that sort of simple query that we were running. Okay, because that gives us more data to work with. And we want a lot of data because it might have sounded, obviously now computer's memory is large, right? You can hold like, I think my computer has 8 gigs of memory or whatever. So you can hold 8 gigs of data there. That's not too bad, right? Obviously it's not the greatest, but yeah, it's not terrible. Okay, so we can type whatever query we want there. So this will be a fairly large query, 19,000 responses, but not nearly enough to fill up the computer's memory to the extent that you need an actual reader, right? Like having more adaptive data is not going to be bad here. We then open up the connection. So again, like I was explaining, initializing the connection is not the same as opening the connection. So this is where we actually connect to the database. And yeah, so then we can execute the query in a number of different ways. How we did it last time is we used an SQL data reader, okay, SQL data reader. And you can see it says provides a way of reading a forward-only stream of rows from a SQL Server database. Okay, so that's the SQL data reader. That's how we did this last time. And we read the response of the command. If you guys want to see it again, you can go to last week's lecture. This time, we're going to do something slightly different. This time we are going to read things into a data adapter. Okay, so data adapter. So this is going to mean that if all the data, the object itself is literally going to be stored in our memory, okay, in our memory. So we'll say SQL data adapter, we'll give it a name. I'm just going to call mine adapter. And we just say, like, this is a normal object, SQL data adapter. And Visual Studio hopefully will give us some blurbs about what this thing expects. Obviously, it needs the command that you are running, right? It needs the command that you are running. I don't think, it doesn't need an SQL command though. This just needs the text of the command. It just needs the text of the command, and it needs the connection. Okay, so what we're going to do, we no longer need the SQL command. Okay, we just need the text for that command. Okay, so what I'll do, I'm going to change this. You guys know what type this is. I would ask you, but to be honest, I think you guys are pretty fine with knowing that this is a string. So this is our command, select star from AdventureWorks. That's just saying that it's not used currently. Yeah. So what we give this is we give it the command that is being read. Okay. the command that's being run. Okay, now it brought it up. So string, so it wants the command text. So string select command text. Okay, so if your connection string does not match, you can use, okay, cool. So this is even telling you if you don't have integrated security set to true, you wouldn't even be able to do this. So that's quite interesting to see. So you see it tells us it needs the command text and it needs a connection. So I'm going to give it the command and the connection. Okay, the command and the connection, like so. Although I'm not sure if the connection needs to be opened. Let me just double check in the example. I think it'll open the connection for us, actually. I think it's safer probably to just open it. Yeah, if it complains, we can fix it later. Cool. So that's going to create the adapter. All right. However, we haven't started using a data set yet. So what we need now is, so this has given us this whole response. So that's going to run a certain query, but we need it to be represented in the memory still. So if you look the SQL data adapter, let's just see. So it represents a set of data commands and a database connection that are used to fill the system.dataset. Okay, so this is saying it's going to query the database given with connection. So it's going to use the command, okay, whatever the command was. So in this case, select star from adventureworks.person.person. And it's going to use the connection. So the connection to that database. So it's going to query that database. But the whole purpose of this data adapter, you can see it even says the only reason they created it was that it's used to fill the system.data.dataset. Okay, so they tell you what it's used for. The reason you use this data adapter, you give it the command, you give it the connection, and then you can use it to fill a data set. Okay, so what do they mean by that? The data set is the in-memory representation. The data set is the in-memory representation. So how are we going to create a data set? Do I even, I don't know if I have to type this myself. So I'll tell you data set is like an object. Can someone type the code for me in chat? You know, I'm getting tired now. How am I going to create a data set object? Do you guys have any ideas? Let's say we want to call our data sets DS person. I want to call it DS person. It's for like data set person. Can someone type the code in chat? What do you think it'll look like? How do we create a new object of type data set? DS person equals new data set. You have to give DS person a type though as well, hey? Okay, yeah, but close enough, close enough. So I'll do it here. We say data set. Okay, you see it auto completes because it automatically imported using system.data. Did you guys see that? So this is what's nice about using Visual Studio over something like Rex Tester. So you can see I hadn't imported system.data. Dataset is inside system.data. So if I import dataset, you can see it knows it's in system.data. As soon as I click enter, you see it automatically imports system.data. So that's super convenient. Saving some work. Okay, so let's see. Alex says dataset, DS person equals new dataset. Yeah, that's pretty close. You need the brackets at the end though, because you must be calling the, what is it called? Let me actually, I'll type it out for you guys now. So I'll say, it'll look a lot like what you got there. So DS person, I'll call it, equals new dataset. You could use a lowercase p, obviously. So you need these brackets here. You need these brackets here. Why do I need those brackets there? Why is that a method? Why is dataset a method? What do we call the method that's being called when I put the brackets there? Do you guys remember? What if I click on it and I give you the little blurb that describes dataset? It says that the dataset method initializes a new instance of the dataset class. What do we call that? Something that initializes a new instance of a class. What did we call that? You can notice, so the class is called what? The class is called dataset, right? And you can see the brackets after that mean that I'm calling, yeah, so an object is an instance of a class, but this is the method that is initializing the instance. Wow, we're getting into pretty advanced programming terminology now. But let me, so the name of this class is dataset. Here I'm calling a method called dataset. What is this method officially called? What would we officially call it? Does anyone remember from chapter 2? There's a special rule. What is the only method that has the same name as the class that it's in? Yeah, exactly. So that's why we need the brackets here, guys. So you see it's saying dataset DS person. So that's giving this a type, right? So DS person is of type dataset equals new dataset, but this is a method. You see this is a method because that's going to actually go and construct an object of type dataset. Okay, so that is the constructor. Dataset with a bracket afterwards is the constructor. Okay, anyway. That was just cool. Both of you got it. That's cool. Yes, constructor. Great stuff. So there we go. We've read in our data set here. Yeah. So now we want to populate this data set. So I've got a data set that I want to hold the person table, basically, is what I want this data set to do. And so we are going to use our adapter to fill the data set. And it's pretty easy to do, actually. And the name is pretty good. So you see, I say adapter. So adapter is the name of our SQL adapter that's holding the response of the query. So with that adapter, I want to say adapter dot, and you can see it autocomplete. So fill, it says adds or refreshes rows in a specified range in the data set to match those in the data source using the data. Okay, let's not get too, we don't have to get too crazy. Okay, so there we go. We've got dot fill. And now with this, so adapter.fill, you can give this two things. You can give it the data set that you want to fill. So the data set I want to fill is DS person. Okay. So I want to fill DS person. That's the data set I want to fill. And the table that I want to fill it with is person. Okay. The table from the response that I want to fill it with. Okay. So that's what this is saying. That's what the data adapter allows us to do. The data adapter allows us to fill the data set with that table. Okay. So now what I'll have is this person table will actually be inside the data set. And I'll be able to work with it in the computer's memory. Okay. Now, in general, this is all you're actually going to be asked. We could kind of stop here. That's what they'll ask you. They'll say, how do you fill a data set? I'm going to use like 5 more minutes just to show you like why this is, it's pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm kind of forgetting how the, let's just try this. We're going to be programming on the fly here a little bit. So I'm going to say for each, okay, because I forget the names of everything. So using for each allows me to, not remember. So inside a data set, we've actually got the table. So there's a thing called a data table, an object, like a class called a data table. You see, data table. So you can see, I can say from the data, for each data table in DS person dot tables. Okay. So this is going to return all the tables saved in the dataset DS person. And like we're going, you guys can see how this, do you see how, it's very clever, right? It's actually quite cool that, you can do it with integers, but you can also do it with these super crazy, like quite complicated objects, right? That it's the same structure, right? You can imagine this being for each int num in numbers, right? In this case, I just basically have an array of tables. Obviously, it's slightly more complicated than an array of tables. And I'm just taking out each, actually, no, it is literally just an array of tables. If we check tables, gets the collection of tables contained in the data set. How do we store a collection, guys? How do we iterate over a collection? We use the for each loop. Okay, so each table is going to be read from tables. And then each table has a number of rows, right? So I can say for each, I am doing this kind of on the fly, so forgive me for any. So each table has a number of rows, right? So we can say for each data row in, row in table dot rows. Gonna go with that, okay? So for each data row in table dot rows. So you can see we're getting each table that's in our data set. There's only one table, it's just the person table. But obviously this is just a slightly easier way to access it. For each data row in table.rows. So that table, that person table, we'll get each row in the table, and then we can get each column from the row, for example. We can say like for each Let's see, what would we use? It'll be like data column col in row dot. I think we can instead use data field. Data field, is there a data field or? Let me think about this a little bit. Oh no, I'm underestimating it here. So what we can do now is identify each column by its name. So this is why it's so cool. Remember how we had to get the value of the query previously? We had to say dot get value, and then we wanted first name and last name. So we used 4 and 6, right? Because the table wasn't literally in memory, it was just an array. Okay, but what's so powerful about this is it actually saved the whole table. So I can literally just access row in position first name. Okay, like that, like a dictionary. And I can print that out. So I can say like console.writeLine, a row in position first name. You see, it's not complaining. So that's the name of the column, it's first name. And yeah, I guess let's just go try this out, and that'll end the course on a nice note, because I think this was, if you even kind of understand this code while you're in high school, honestly, you're on a pretty good track. So I'm just going to build it. I need to, no, I don't have to do anything. I can just CMD. Okay, I'll open up CMD. Okay, so here's command prompt. I'm just going to go, okay, it's still building. Yeesh, it takes so long to build on the first try. Okay, there you go. So I'm just going to copy, because it tells you what directory it's saved in. So I'm just going to Control-C that. And assuming I got the column name correct, this will work. But I forget if it was first name or first underscore name, or like what format they use. Okay, so I cheddered into the correct directory. I'm just going to run console app 1. It needs to open up the connection. It's printing out all the first names from the table. So that'll print out 19,972 first names. It worked first time. Legit. Okay, cool. That's that, guys. That's all the course content. Congratulations, I guess, on finishing everything. So what we're going to do, we can take like a 6-minute break, and then Joanne will probably pop in and visit. I don't know if she's joined already, actually. Let's check. Okay, not yet. I think she's joining at around 4. So shall we come back at 4? And yeah, I think we'll probably finish a little bit earlier today. But yeah, we can. Oh, thanks, Alex. That's yeah. So let's take a 6-minute odd break. Get some water, chill out a bit, and see you guys at 4. Back at 4. No problem, Hashita. Just make sure you catch up with what you missed. I think that maybe you only missed the Mentimeter quiz or something. I'm not sure. But just I'll upload the recording and stuff afterwards as usual. So not too bad. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to switch back to my laptop so that I have a video. To the reg. I think I'm to the reg. What do you mean to the reg? You mean the regular WhatsApp group? Or to the recording? I'm not sure. Oh, register, of course. Okay, no, geez, maybe I'm tired or something. Sorry for not getting that. Obviously, you meant register. Okay, be back now. I will do, actually, let me just do that now while I remember. Okay, I need to add Jad as well. Okay, so Jad. Is there anyone else that I would have missed? Chris, I haven't added you to the register. I haven't added Keaton, I haven't added to the register. Liema, I haven't added to the register. Okay, so I'll add all of you guys. Cool, I'm glad everyone dropped in the end. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. That's good. Okay. So, okay, Rahan said he wouldn't make it. Keaton. And Liam. Okay, I think that's everyone I must. Oh, Chris. Cool. I think that covered everyone. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I think Joanne should be joining soon. Sorry about the delay. How's school going though, guys? Feeling ready for exams? Yo, I was stressed during exam season at school. I don't think I liked school too much. Varsity's good though. We're getting so much tasks to do just before exams. Yeah, it happens. They want you to revise and stuff. I mean, I think Big Depression is kind of how you can describe all of 2020. You know, I read something from, what was it, July to September, so like the third quarter of 2020, South Africa's economy contracted 51%. That's gigantic. 51%. Smaller. Like our growth target for the year, optimistically, is minus 11%. That's sad. Contracted how it was. Yeah. I mean, I guess it has been a bad year, obviously, economically speaking, but also just generally, like socially and whatever. And, you know, pandemics. So there's that, but that one kind of goes without saying. Been a crazy year. I guess it's not a bad way to like end a decade though. Well, it is a bad way, but you know what I mean? It's like a transitionary period. I'm sure there will be. Nice. Nice word. I mean, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but like next year can't be worse, at least. Yeah, I'm not sure where she is, but I guess she can be a bit late. It's okay. 3 minutes. Got a bad network. Oh yeah, I'm sure video doesn't help. But you know, if the boss is joining the call, I need video on. Running out of data. Oh, okay. Yeah, data. Have they done that thing? They were going to make it so that like data can't expire or something. Because I think data can still expire, right? All right, I don't know. I'm on contract, so I don't really have to think about it. Yeah, that's why I thought like it was going to be like law or something. I remember reading an article that they were considering just making it law, which in a way it does make sense because as it is, it's like trading permanent money for temporary money. It doesn't make sense that you would make it expire because there's no reason for it to expire. It's not, you know, milk. Let me check my WhatsApps. Nothing yet. I do know she was in like another meeting till 4, so Sorry to keep you guys waiting. Although I guess as it stands, we've just taken a 10-minute break instead of a 5-minute break. Oh, by the way, has anyone done the module 2 of understanding databases yet? So I know I only sent it to you guys on like Monday. My data goes just as far as the COVID infection count in SA keeps rising. Like a Twitch stream. I mean, it is also the size of some of the smaller Twitch streams in a way. There are Twitch streamers who have like less than 18 viewers, eh? I think. I haven't actually checked our stats. Let me reclaim hosting. How do I do that again? Here we go. Yeah, no, I just reclaimed hosting because I moved it over to my other. Can't have Twitch chat without cringe. What do you call a bird in Java brain? No, programming jokes are good. I mean, they're not good humor, but they're good for learning, I guess, if there's something that you're unfamiliar with.
Hey, Josh.
What do you call a bird in Java binary? Tell us, Keaton, you can't just leave us hanging. Talking of funny names, my mom's optometrist's name is Cornelia, which is great. Now I can't tell if Alex is joking or not. Okay, you're almost certainly joking. No one drags their legless dog around. That's terrible. I mean, this ain't too bad. Binary is the species of bird in Java. Oh, okay. Oh, right. Question marks, Keaton. Have we just completely given up on punctuation? Okay, so they call it binary. What do you call, what do you call a bird in Java? Binary. That's true. Okay, you're being authentic. You're being, yeah, he's a bot. Ban him, mods. No mods. I don't think Twitch streamers with 18 viewers have mods either. I know it's getting really bad in like Europe again, right? They're having like a third or second wave. Yeesh. That's not good. Ah, hello, Joanne. No problem. I was just stalling.
Sorry, I've actually been here for like 3 minutes or so already. I wasn't sure if you were actually doing the lecture or not.
Oh, no. I was just stalling.
I was wondering, like, was this a website that you'd created or something that you were looking through? I'm really sorry. Hi, guys. my meeting ran a little bit late on the other side. I had like 3 back-to-back Zoom meetings, so I really do apologize that I'm wasting your time and keeping late, but very excited to be here. And I was really enjoying the jokes. You guys are super smart that you come up with such awesome jokes. Josh, thanks for hosting me. Just give me a short sense, Josh, just how kind of where the kids are at. Sorry, not kids, where the learners, where the learners are at with the database. Just so that I kind of know where to jump in.
Oh, with the database modules?
Yeah.
Okay, I think most of them would have finished the first one. The second one, I'm not sure about. I did ask about it, but then it divulged into Twitch chat.
Okay, so
yeah, most of them would have done the first one.
So you guys have all. So can I just have a raise of hands or chat? Who hasn't gone on the week 1 database module, so the online database module?
I know like the Roosevelt students thought it was quite long, but interesting. But I don't know if you were watching like all of the tutorial videos in a while back, long ago. Let me
okay, so Alex, you obviously haven't, which is fine. Who else hasn't? I mean, like, there's no one's going to get into trouble. Can't remember doing it. All right, so maybe let me share my screen just so that you've disabled my. Josh, do you want to just?
No, I haven't disabled it. It's just I think it's by default.
Yeah, don't worry. I will, let me just quickly share the...
How do I make it so that you can... I just allow you to... Oh, right. There we go. I know how to do it. Advanced sharing options. Well,
I'll just send you guys a link.
Okay, you can share now. You can share now. You can share now. Yeah.
Okay. So does this look recognizable to anyone? Has anyone seen Tembi needs your help? It's hard to manage sharing screen and the chat.
Okay, it looks like no one in this class has done it yet.
Okay, so guys, can I ask, it's going to help you for your database from a revision point of view. So even though you might have gone through databases with Josh, this is going to really help because you get a chance to actually practice, especially week 2 when you start having to write your SQL code. You're going to have a chance to actually practice writing the code, and we've built a little IDE where you are actually typing in the code and getting feedback immediately to see what the results window shows, etc. So I think maybe let me come back in, Josh, how many, a week or 2?
Well, I don't know. So this class, I suppose we'd be doing a revision lecture this week. I don't know if there's like some kind of curriculum structure for revision lectures.
No,
I guess we can write the test next week. Yeah, so then, yeah, because they are done with like the official course content.
Okay.
Today.
So, I mean, this, when you're revising, this is just going to help kind of go through, I mean, it'll probably take you 20 minutes. I mean, I had a Roosevelt kid, or was it Northcliffe learner who said...
I know Tuddy did it, and like quite a few people did it at Roosevelt.
Yeah, so I'd like you guys all to go through this because it's supposed to actually help you, but then I also want to get feedback on how to make it better and improve it. So this is week 1's content. Tembi needs your help. She's developing a social media app, and you can kind of go into what will you learn in this course if you click into it. So here we see Tembi is in grade 11 at Sutherland High. She wants your help to build a prototype for her new social media app, and she needs your help to design and develop the database. So you're actually getting some practical experience actually doing database development. you go into the course, and so this is just information on what you're going to learn. But you know, here when you're understanding databases, we've actually gone and got some nice little videos. So I mean, when I read that Microsoft textbook, I feel sorry for you guys. I really do. It's terrible. We have tried to make that, and I know Josh does a good job of decoding the Microsoft textbook in his slides as well. So, you know, there might be some duplication here, but we've gone and tried to find some cool videos that will really simply explain and show you how databases function in the real world, not just, you know, for the Microsoft course, but actually how does it operate? How does it get used? There's like little interaction things where you can, you know, what is a database, and you can go and look and see more information about it. I'm not going to go through it all, but you know, just to give you a kind of snapshot of what it will look like. I'm assuming none of you have done it then. So let me reconvene in a week. And there's actually two. Let me send you the other one, because quite frankly, you could probably
on the group as well. It's Tech Roads 2.
Tech Roads 2, exactly. So you could probably go through Tech Roads Run. I mean, I know kids that have gone through it in like 20 minutes or so. And then Tech Roads 2, it's a little bit longer because you're actually coding. But I want feedback from you guys on the IDE experience as well, because we built that as a separate little project. So cool. So I will reconvene and hope to hear your feedback. Josh will also send you a feedback form, a Google form that will take you a few, like 5 minutes, 2 minutes or so to fill out. Please can I ask you guys to do that, because it helps us to, no, these are not for marks, Alex. This is for you. This is to help you revise your, so that by the time you get to the Microsoft exam, you'll find it easier. And
so you need to post the leaderboard at the end, and that will get Alex to do it.
Good idea. We could think of something like that. Thanks. Cool, guys. So I look forward to hearing your feedback on this. Josh, so next week or the week after that?
Next week can work. I think, I mean, they're starting exams at the beginning of November, right? I think, is Crawford's first on like the 5th or something?
Chris, don't be so negative, dude.
The 6th. Is it the 6th? Okay. So yeah, I think the 3rd for the seniors. So yeah, I think at the beginning of November, we'll probably ease off, give them more time to study and stuff.
Yeah, I got that. So next week is better.
Yeah, next week, definitely.
So let's, I mean, just do as much, like if you can't go through everything, that's fine. I would just really love to get your feedback on the experience. So I will chat to you next week then, guys. Have a good week. Bye.
Good weekend.
I mean, weekend, yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers, everyone. Okay. Let's see. I suppose that brings our lecture to a close. To be honest, I thought she was asking for course feedback, not database feedback, but that's fine. Cool. Anyway, yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Cheers, and see you on the weekend or next week. I made the same mistake now. Yeah, see you next week. I don't know, I'll prepare some like sort of revision thing. I'm not sure what we'll do. Maybe like 15 Mentimeter quizzes in a row. Yeah, thank you guys. Cheers, everyone. Is this a 5? Oh, no. Next week's revision lecture will just be a normal lecture. It's not going to be, yeah, like 1.5 hours. We'll probably, before your exam, we'll meet for like a full Saturday, just discussing like the whole course and all the problems and stuff. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a Saturday, just like hypothetically. Okay, but cool. Cheers, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Yeah, you too, Alex. It's a pleasure, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.